We used a range of equipment and different technology throughout the production of our music video and promotion pack, and it was clear that without them we would definitely not been able to produce a product anywhere near as good. Everything from the software to the lighting we used were essential in our construction. The first and probably most important pieces of equipment were the cameras that we used to film the video and take photos for our auxiliary task. We used 3 cameras in total, 2 that we used to film the video and 1 that I took photos on during the research and the construction. These were the Nikon D3100, owned and signed out from school, the Canon 550D, which was Dom's camera, and the Canon 450D, which was my camera. Both the Canon 550D and the Nikon D3100 filmed video at a minimum of 1080p at 30 frames per second. However, the Canon also shot 720p at 60 frames per second, which gave us the option of experimenting with slow motion. This also allowed us to capture quicker moving shots like the BMX and skate park scenes in a lot clearer and high quality footage compared to 30 frames per second, where the image might not be as fluent when looking at it finally. The cameras were great for video because of their lightweight and manual ability to change aspects that a HD camcorder wouldn't easily have access to, such as the aperture or ISO. More importantly, it allowed us quick access to focusing, which was extremely important, as focus was one of our major areas of manipulation throughout the video. Without the Canon 550D, we wouldn't have been able to produce a final result that was anywhere near the quality of our final cut. Not only did it allow us access to multiple lenses that we already owned, but it also had a number of features in its spec that the Nikon lacked. For example, it had a high range of ISO, which allowed us to achieve better quality images in the dark. Also, it had a very small image sensor, which decreased the chances of vignetting in the image when we were playing around with lens flares in the close-ups of the performance. Each camera had a single 8GB memory card when filming, but we usually brought our laptops out with us on set to wipe the cards when they were full as well. This allowed us to shoot as much footage as possible, so that when it came to the final cut we weren't exactly looking for footage to put in, and we had plenty available at our fingertips. The final cut includes over 41 gigs of base footage, and in total we filmed over 90 gigs worth of footage across all the different scenes. However, I would have liked to have bigger memory cards on set, and also spare ones, so we didn't have to wait for the cards to transfer onto our laptops before we could start filming again with a particular camera, or if there was a risk that the memory cards were to mess up or break or something, then we had a backup to run with on set. We also used a range of different lenses for each of our cameras when filming. On the Nikon D3100 we only had the standard 18 to 55mm lens, as it would belong to the schools. However, as we both owned Canons, we had more than a few lenses to utilise depending on the location and the type of shot that we were going for. Firstly, we had a 50mm prime lens, which had an extremely small focal distance. Prime lenses are lenses which have fixed focal length, which means they don't have access to zoom in and out on a subject like a normal telephoto lens could. This meant we could really achieve a really small and accurate focus pulse by moving towards and away from the subject. We used this lens in the majority of our close-ups during the video because of the shallow depth of field it creates. This basically means that it blurs out the background really clearly, drawing the viewer's focus to the main subject, which in fact is in focus. Secondly, we used a fisheye lens for some of the shots, which is a very wide-angle lens with a degree of coverage of just over 170 degrees. This is a lot wider than your standard telephoto lenses. Therefore, when used in the shots like in the BMX scenes, it allowed us to show more of both the floor and the ceiling, emphasising the height of the tricks and the actor. We also used this lens in the shot of the drummer. As the lens has a great field of coverage, it allowed us to film from within the drums while still being able to see the individual parts that he is hitting. This allows a unique and different perspective on the drums and worked well when edited into the sequence. Finally, we used 2 other telephoto lenses, another standard 18 to 55mm lens for the majority of the video, and then a 70 to 300mm lens. The 18 to 55mm lens is the standard lens that comes with the majority of new cameras, which allows a good amount of variety in the shot. It achieves relatively wide angle and close-up shots when zoomed to its extremities, making it an all-round multi-purpose lens. This was used for the majority of our filming. The 70 to 300mm lens are mainly used for long-distance photography or extreme close-ups. The other plus with this lens is the option to pull severe focus pulls if needed. However, we mainly use this to film things that we couldn't usually get up as close to as we wanted. For example, the skateboarding tricks, where they needed a suitable room to pull off the trick. However, we wanted nice close-ups of the shot and the actor's feet. We then had a number of extra pieces of equipment we used when filming. Firstly, we had access to 2 lightweight tripods, which we could use to steady the image easily and in awkward locations no matter the weather. This saved us time from trying to stay as still as possible when filming and in reducing any later shake in post-production, and it also gave us access to smooth panning and tilting shots. Next, we used something called the Flycam 5000, which is a Steadicam. This we could use to steady any moving shots and was extremely effective when comparing it with and without. The Flycam works by balancing the camera at the top and the bottom and then using a gimbal and bearing to absorb and smoothing any shake when moving. There is a link to a post below about usage of Steadicams in a lot greater depth, but we also originally tried to hand build a Steadicam from PVC piping, but we found that it was too unstable to use when walking in the wind and other things. Finally, we used the 430 EX2 flash gun during the production of our auxiliary tasks when taking photos of the Digipack and advert. The powerful flash allowed us to light the set easily and cleanly so that the risk of shadows was as low as possible. The flash brightened the backdrop and made it look a lot more professional than the white paper that it actually was. There are a couple of other physical pieces of equipment that we used. Most importantly were mine and Dom's 13-inch MacBook Pros, mine own being a 2.3 GHz i5 with 16 GB of RAM, and then we also had access to an iMac each in school. My MacBook allowed us to use professional software on set and scene if needed, and then the high amounts of RAM allowed me to easily run high demanding programs and render extremely quickly without risk of it freezing for programs such as Final Cut Pro X or Adobe After Effects. This made the production timeline a lot shorter. I also used a green bedsheet as a green screen when making the video behind the steel wall. This worked extremely well when being stretched out and taped to my wardrobe, as I could easily key out the colours in After Effects. Finally, I also used my Geotech headset mic when recording my voice for any videos. This records sound in a higher quality and bitrate in comparison to your average laptop mic, and also drowns out background noise that your laptop might make when you're talking, making my voice a lot cleaner and to hear. Lighting wise, we had quite a few different lights, each with their positive and negatives. We only really used these lights when filming the performance because the rest of the footage was shot outdoors during the day. We had a pair of industrial lights that were meant for construction sites. These were extremely powerful and we used as the main lights when filming the performance. We also had 2 high-powered lamps which had a much smaller lighting spread, and it allowed us to use them as more spotlights. I could also tape white paper onto the front of these to act as diffusion if we wanted to try and use these as softboxes. Finally, we had a subtle LED light tube, which we used to gently lighten the actor's body and face. This was more of a bright white light compared to the tungsten lights of the spotlights and the construction industrial lights, so this is what we used on the front of the actors instead of the other ones. After this, the rest of technology that we used was actually software or the capabilities of the internet. The internet was an extremely important source at our disposal because of the interactivity that it offers through websites. Firstly, and the most crucial of these sites, was Blogger. This is a free website that allows you to post work and provides a virtual folder or portfolio for our coursework. The main difference between this and paper is the opportunity for including different ways that work can be displayed, everything from text and pictures to video and online presentations. This gave us a wide base of available sources to work with to promote our work in a very interactive and visually exciting way instead of the boring essay-based coursework. Next were the different softwares that we actually used to construct our coursework. There are many different things that these softwares were used in. However, to keep the video as short as possible, I have only listed a few examples for each. The music video alone was made using a handful of different software. The bulk of it was edited using Final Cut Pro X, which is an Apple-compatible software, allowing us to sort and arrange video clips quickly and easily. Although it didn't offer as many detailed options as Adobe Premiere Pro, and which I later discovered, it has a very easy layout which allowed me to get to grips with it extremely quickly. Everything from simple things like trimming and adding multiple clips to snap in time with the music, to allowing me to retime some clips like Danny playing the keyboard, so that the visuals were in time with the music. I used Final Cut for the sound as well. Although we had a music track to play for the majority of the song, there was still an intro which didn't have any high quality sound to go with it. Therefore I could use Final Cut to position and edit recorded sound clips from different locations to fit with the scenes on screen. We used Final Cut to edit the main music video, and then I also used it to edit some of the other videos, such as the feedback video or the target audience video at the start of the project. However, later during the coursework I switched to using Adobe Premiere Pro because of the bigger variety of options it offers. It offers an easy way of being able to bring compositions and files between Adobe After Effects and Photoshop without having to constantly render them individually and separately. This saved me a lot of time, and I used Premiere Pro to make all the other videos, such as the steel wall photography video and all my evaluation videos, which included a lot of on-screen annotations and effects. This brings us to our next piece of software, Adobe After Effects. I use Adobe After Effects for all the visual and special effects during our coursework. Prime example on how powerful this software is shown in the intro, where the camera gives the appearance that it passes through the window, when actually the original shot is completely windowless. This is created through animating a mask layered with loads of different textures, so it does actually look like a window. Because of the versatility of this program, I could use the program for both complex tasks, like keying out colours when I was using the homemade green screen, or masking people in and out of scenes, and both simple tasks like the different text effects and fades you see in some of my evaluation questions. Then I could render the product either straight into Premiere Pro or as a separate video file, saving me both time and effort and memory. Another good thing about Adobe After Effects is the add-ons you can have with the software. We were able to use things called plugins, which are externally made add-ons by third-party companies that saved us from swapping and changing softwares for different effects. I use a few different plugins like Keylight, Magic Bullet and Twixtor. These plugins save me a tremendous amount of time and effort and produce a load of visual and special effects that I wouldn't never be able to do with just After Effects alone. Photoshop was the last of the Adobe softwares that I used in the coursework, and this was used for all the still image manipulation. I used this program quite a lot. The whole production of the ancillary task was made using Adobe Photoshop, from editing the original image to arranging the text and layout of the products. Although it isn't primarily designed for graphic design on print layouts, like other programs like Adobe InDesign, but my experience with Photoshop allowed me to create an equally, if not more, professional and creative product. It was also used for very basic things like placing more than one picture in the same image instead of having to upload multiple images to Blogger, also allowing me to utilize space in the post and bumping my blog slightly ahead of everyone else's, showing the extra effort that I have put into just the smallest amount of things. These are the most essential programs of all that I use throughout the production of my coursework, and without these our coursework would be nowhere near the final piece it is now. Although these programs aren't the best out there, they are still challenging industry standard software like Avid Media Composer or Autodesk Smoke. Without these we would have to resort to using more basic things like Windows Movie Player or PaintShop Pro, which could have ended up very embarrassingly.